in the last 14, 15 years, I moved back to hospitality. And I brought maintenance care with me.
Hello, how are you doing? Good to see you again, Leon.
Yes, nice to see you again.
I'm glad you made some time to talk to me today because I think we've known each other for a little while, and through different organizations that you've used maintenance care through, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But what you been up to? What's been going on in your life right now?
Yes, so you're right. I got to know maintenance care when I was in healthcare, right? So as you know, I started off in hospitality as a young junior, right? And did a period there and then moved into healthcare and spent about 12, 14 years in healthcare. And I'm on the West Coast, British Columbia, and I was introduced to maintenance care 2008, I want to say, 2008, 2009, somewhere like that. So I've been working with it since, and in the last 14, 15 years, I moved back to hospitality. And I brought maintenance care with me.
Yeah, we're grateful. So, yeah, when you say healthcare, that was actually senior care, specifically part of healthcare, and so there were some different challenges, I'm sure, between hospitality and senior care. So, what types of things did you experience back then, that were unique to that industry that you can think of that would be of value to share with other people about senior care itself and maintenance and the buildings and so on?
Yeah, so senior buildings are buildings, right? The infrastructure still maintains the same, right? So we need the power, we need your water, quality of air, and so on, right? So for the hospitality part of it, the building gets more usage, right? It's a different business that's within the building, right? Again, infrastructure is the same. So with healthcare, maintenance care really helped in making sure that we were on top of things, because that's the problem is your window of opportunity to get into some of the areas that we consider common areas. It's not always as easy and accessible, right, in the care home facilities, because of the nature of the business they conduct, right? Where hospitality, there's a bigger window and you're able to adjust a little bit more to it.
So because people are checking in, checking out, you have space, you can go in and do the work, or even like kind of block off a room or something. If you had big extensive work, you can't really do that in senior care because there's people living there all the time.
Yeah, exactly, Dan. And as we know, unfortunately, many times mobility could be a challenge in care home and all that. So if you have to access, especially a living area or occupied sleeping area, if you want to, in a whole bit, hospitality, we can actually take that room out and have 100% access. In the care facility, doesn't necessarily work that way, right? So that is always a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So now you went from senior care to hospitality, back to hospitality, and so your role has changed too, right? Because you were in charge maybe of a smaller team and of a specific building, and now you're in a new role. How's that changed in your perspective?
Yes, so when I was part of the care home facilities, now that I was overlooking 3 buildings, but they were smaller buildings, right? They were actually quite simple buildings, not too high end in technology. And now with my role here in hospitality, so I've acquired 6 buildings. Some of them are relatively big. And one of the which I enjoy, one of the challenges is some of the properties are aged, right? They're older properties, and that's where things have changed over the course. I gotta say, the last 20 years, 25 years is now everything costs so much more money to repair and replace. Everybody wants to get maximum life expectancy out of any kind of piece of equipment. It doesn't matter if it's a care home for for a senior lift or one of their tubs or something that's part of a hospitality. And one of the challenges I do find with these older buildings, when I say older, I'm talking, 60, 70-year-old buildings, is introducing new with old, right? Because we live in a world now that technology is attached to absolutely every piece of equipment. And so those could be challenging, right? There's always a cost involved also.
Yeah, yeah. So you said 60 to 70 years old, some of these buildings? Wow. So you might have old plumbing, old wiring, and so that presents itself, a challenge where you're doing maybe some rentals or fixes and things like that, I would imagine. But now the equipment, what you're talking about when you say, okay, well, maybe I want the equipment to talk to a software, but it's old equipment. How do you get any readings out of this, whatever it is, to say this is it's working correctly? Nowadays, you can get these machineries that are kind of built in with the technology. And you're saying you're kind of having to find these maybe add-on solutions that fit with the old units. Is that kind of what you're heading to?
Yeah, exactly. So as you know, technology is at our fingertips, right? So it's that's the upside of it. Something as simple, if you're running, for example, a laundry facility, right? Again, applicable to both healthcare and hospitality. The new machines that are coming out, the new dryers and ironers and whatever you might have, they all got built-in, Wi-Fi capability. They got different program boards that you can get in there, so you can attach a piece of software to it, right? For different reasons, right? As a housekeeper, executive housekeeper, or whatever, she might want to monitor the volume and so on. As a maintenance person, right, as part of the preventive maintenance or whatever, we can also have alerts, right, when we're ready to, service this. So it works well because we combine it with maintenance care, right? So we are set up, all our equipment, every single piece of equipment is in the assets. We love the barcode system. That's just absolutely phenomenal. And again, I want to talk a little bit about that. The many maintenance guys out there over my years of experience, the more they work with something and when they see results is when they believe it, right? Because we're like that. We need to see it to believe it, right? Preventive maintenance saves money. Everybody's been saying that for the last 50 years, right? But when they can go in and they can actually scan a piece of equipment and have all this information come back and even have links that are attached to that piece of software or that piece of equipment, then in the combination of that and the piece of software that you might have attached, that's through the manufacturer, it really tightens up the accuracy of your troubleshooting if there is anything. So again, technology is a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you have barcodes on all your pieces of equipment. Your team can go up to a piece of equipment, scan that barcode, and they get all that information there, and they can start to learn about the equipment if they don't know about it because they can see all the history right on there. And you find your team's using that pretty good?
Well, let's put it this way. If we took it away from them, they would be very unhappy, right? So now it's just become a normal. And, depending on who we're dealing with, some people adapt quicker than other. The new generation, they're born with it, so that's just a walk in the park. Give them a login, cut them loose, right? So the upside of it too is they acquire more and more knowledge on the piece of equipment, right? For the hardest thing I would say for any maintenance person when they're troubleshooting is if they don't fully understand how that piece of equipment works, right? If you understand how it works, that really narrows down the troubleshooting. And piggybacking on that, if you're working with a really strong team, which I have the pleasure of doing with all my buildings, is information, data collection, right? Just making sure that everything you do and everything that you won, because a maintenance guy, he's at his happiest when he walks away and solves a problem. That's the highlight of the day for him, right? But then that information could be used for the next person down the road that might, come across the same challenges.
Yeah, I always say it's a really fun job doing maintenance because you're always faced with different problems. You're always learning new things. You feel like a sense of accomplishment when you fix that issue or you find an innovative way to deal with it. So it's, people always don't think about maintenance because they're in the basement. They're, like they kind of just come out when there's a problem. But it's actually one of the most fun and educational jobs about everything that you do, including when you get back to your house. You have all that knowledge you can use, for your home space. So how big is your team now? Like what, you said you have 6 locations that are kind of reporting to you. And so how big is your team overall?
So overall, I average a team of 5 with one, maintenance manager in place. I do have one property that has a team of 9. It's a bigger property, and it's again, it's that development, is the retaining, right? And making sure that we retain the right people. So just piggyback again a little on the barcode thing. Another thing that is really good, because we're all accountable to somebody along the line, is the barcodes, as if you're holding a position as a supervisor, managerial, or whatever it might be, auditing your equipment, right? So again, it was a game changer, right? Where, making sure that, air quality is there, and that would involve replacing filters, making sure your air units are clean, if you have hard water in certain areas, making sure that all those systems are up and running. Myself, I can go at any of the properties, take my phone off, being logged into the app, and I can scan, and I can immediately see, the status of that piece of equipment, right? And that's when, we celebrate the fact that it's on time and everything is great. And if we're a little bit behind, maybe we need to give them a bit of support. So again, every action has a reaction. It's money saving at the end of the day, right? So the people that engage in it on a day-to-day basis and make maintenance, building maintenance a career, have a different approach, right, than somebody that's just making it a job. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. And as you mentioned, so that means you have about, let's say, 30, 35 people that you're kind of overseeing, and you need to have that transparency because you can't be there everywhere all the time. And so a system where they do the work, but you can see that, you can, like you said, do audits of the work of the equipment, that really kind of improves your visibility at each site. So that's really good information. Now, I remember, so, you started, I guess, over 15 years ago with us. And, back then, technology wasn't an accepted thing in maintenance. We were just trying to break through as far as making people think about maintenance and technology, and you need to use it. Now everybody's, kind of on board with that. But what made you an early adopter? Like what's in your background that you were like, I don't care, I want to use this, I think it's valuable. Was there something, that you grew up with that always, guided you towards new things like that? You were an early adopter.
I was. Yeah, I definitely remember maintenance care, different formats and all that, way before Bolt and all that stuff, right? So yeah, it was a pleasure actually working with you guys. I think we learned from each other a lot. I've always been curious, Dan, right, for as long as I can remember, right? So anything new, I have to I got to check it out, right? And hope it. I remember even, as a young child, right? My father was an engineer, and, I always had to take things apart, which unfortunately I didn't always put back together. So I remember the snowblower and the lawnmower, that didn't go over well. So, yeah, when that was introduced, and it was, kind of showcased as, this can improve, make your job easier. That was a selling point right there, Dan. And yeah, you have to. It's my nature. I have to check it out, right? And yeah, it was definitely a great decision on my part.
Absolutely, yeah. It's so funny when you say take things apart, but not always put them back. And it's like you go a little too far, and then you're like, I can't do this. But you're trying to learn how it works. And now, had you used software before for maintenance in other areas? And what was your experience in those tools, if you did?
Yeah, I did. We did. I did get exposed as a user. More, it was more of a user part of it, but it was more of the other ones that a little bit weaker at the time. Again, just very very basic, right? So I wasn't really involved with it. I was just mechanical, if you want, on the day to day of using a documented piece of software, right? So when maintenance care came along, I was fortunate enough to actually, participate in it, right? And then, it changed a lot how we did it, right? Right now, again, I take it to more and more levels and everything. And I'm fortunate I work with some really, really great guys that think outside the box a little bit. So one of the things that we're in the works right now, we're it's going to be 2025, a super big launch, but we've been at it now for about a year. It's that networking that we want to bring to maintenance care, right? So we actually have certain people at certain properties that have access to the notes, right, to your parts tabs, to our vendors. And anyway, the database that is withheld in maintenance care, we're making it available to everybody, right? So, if you're running a kitchen or whatever, a fridge is a fridge, right? They all work the same. So if you're lucky enough, and I'm part of the capital team, and again, we can talk about that for another 3 hours with maintenance care. Love that part of it. We tried to buy the same type of it when we're replacing the same equipment, right? Which obviously is documented in maintenance care and so on. We attach the manufacturer's manual recommendation on the preventive maintenance, and this is accessible to all the maintenance guys, regardless where you are. So if you're in BC, that's fine. If you're in Alberta, you have the same ice machine or same refrigeration. So, and the camaraderie, I like that part. Right. So yeah, so it's actually very fun.
Yeah, that's great. No, and it sounds like the asset portion of the software is kind of the biggest win in a way because you have the biggest return on investment, like you said, on the capital planning and so on. So maybe we can talk a bit about that. Like there's some really great reports in maintenance care that help with that. But what's your process for evaluating equipment that should be replaced or that are aging or that you want to make last longer? What's your process for looking at all that? Is it a yearly thing that you do or do you do it continually?
So again, depending on the piece of equipment, and this is how I do my spiel to everybody, we don't need to invent the wheel, right? With every piece of equipment out there, regardless of the property you have, there's a manual attached to it. The manufacturer is going to tell you these are the specs, these are the expectation, life expectancy, and you must conduct certain preventive maintenance, let it be quarterly, weekly, daily, whatever it might be. So with that said, documentation is key. You're very right. When you start with maintenance care, the very first thing you have to do, build your assets. End of story, right? Once you build that baseline and then go through the training and letting everybody understand the importance of documenting every detail and costs. This is where it's very important. Not just the monetary part of it, Dan, but also the time that you bring into it, right? Because again, we all answer to somebody. Everybody holds a budget. A wish list is not always something that you can, get through all of it and get 100% of it. So when you need to make your case and you see a piece of equipment, and again, putting all the proper information in there. Love that little green bar, yellow bar, red bar. Red bar, start thinking about getting some money from the big boys upstairs. Then we can make our case. Myself, right now, the application, and most properties are like that when they deal with the corporate level like I do, there's a process for capital, right? And they need to have all the documentation. So it's basically, when did we buy it? How much did we pay for it? What's the life expectancy? How much have we paid for it? What's the replacement cost? Any salvage costs? And then they want to break down on basically how did we take care of this piece of equipment, right? Legit questions, right? So again, with maintenance care and the reporting and so on, it's actually makes it streamlines it, and it makes it a little bit easier, and your presentation carries more weight, right?
So your executives that are making the decision on where to budget and what to buy are starting to rely on information that you're getting from your day-to-day process in the system, whatever system you're using. They want that information. Now they're going to make decisions based on your recommendations there, but you have something to support it with. And that's, I guess, the key is once they start to rely on it as being accurate, then it becomes easier for them to say yes if it's legit, right? So that's really good to hear. And so did you, throughout your years, how did you evolve in that process of asset management? Did you pick up all your knowledge on the job, and how did you learn all of this stuff to get to a level like you are?
For that, I'm lucky. I work with really, really great bosses and seniors and all that. I've even spent time with people that are very knowledgeable in the accounting part of it, right? Which that was a weak area. Again, I'm involved with the capital process, the values of replacement and all that. So it's all about listening, right, and just gathering that information. The one thing that I was able, because I always figure, how do I make it easier? How do I get away from these hard conversations, right? Because my world is not always understood by others, right? We each have our own job to do, so we don't necessarily understand somebody else's sandbox, right? So with that said, my approach over the last 10 years or more is we do preventive maintenance, but what about preventive asset management, right? So in other words, being able to look at a piece of equipment and say, we need to start budgeting for that. Because the worst thing is then knocking on the door and say, listen, I need the 100,000, please. That doesn't go over very well, right? So, but if you're able to come up and say, listen, in 2026, 2027, whatever it might be, we need to start looking at this piece of equipment. Here's the history. Here's the ongoing pattern. The other key thing is at some point something seems to discontinue, right? Now that's always a pain for the best of the best, right? No longer available, right? So all these key points, again, documenting and everything, we can't remember all this. So I actually use maintenance care when my budget season comes up to starting it. I put a reminder in there. Right? So I just let maintenance care just like bang. And I'll attach the document there, whatever. I might just create an Excel or whatever, but I'll put it in there and just like, oh, by the way, Leon, reminder, these 6 units need to be talked about for the next following budget. So
yeah, and that's great. So I guess the advice there too is if somebody's starting out in the position of being a maintenance manager and they want to grow in that, they just talk to people about how they do their process, let's say, like you said, in finance and the executive level, how they make their decisions. So you know what is important to them. You start to track those things and you can have those conversations, like you said, are a little smoother. And as you grow, you get to know what works and what doesn't. So that's really good advice. Now, I want to ask you just one little thing here, because I know the first time we met, I went to see you on site at one of the locations. And I don't know if you remember this, but you had done this really innovative gate that you had like soldered yourself and put it on the bottom of a step or something like that so that, people wouldn't be injured as they're walking through a certain area. This was kind of in the staircase area. So I'm wondering, do you have any tips or any other kind of neat things that you built that were innovative, just to help visitors or residents of a facility as the years went on?
Oh yeah, Dad, I do have stories. Yeah, I like to try things out, right? I think everybody, core value, one core value that for the company I work right now, challenge the limits, right? So that just fell right in line with me, right? So, and if you're lucky enough to have people around that want to play the game, one of the things, I thought it'd become a millionaire, it never went anywhere, but one of them was evacuation. Care home facilities, very difficult to evacuate, right? So especially you can't use the elevators and whatever, right? Which that is changing now for modernization. I came up with an idea because the people that were caring themselves, young 20-year-old backs, right? And that it's a very, very difficult job to be in healthcare. It's very physical for everybody. So I figured, how do we move people from a floor without carrying them and without, because at one point it's like you put them in a sheet and the whole bit, and poor grandma, she'd go bouncing all over the place and the whole bit. So I think I was at a park or something, whatever, and I saw a slide, a kiddie slide, and I got this idea. So I made a prototype, and it was under the railing, and it was half a slide, right? And it would just fold up, right? So in the event of emergency, immediate evacuation, we would still use the sheet thing to put Mrs. Smith in there, and then you drop the slide. It was only like 2 feet, 28 inches, or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a while. And you would put them in there, and you would just slide them down all the way down to the bottom, right? So that was one thing that I did. And I thought, this is gonna be good. But unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere.
It didn't go anywhere. I'm sure if we look on Amazon, maybe somebody's selling that somewhere. But
probably. So,
but I can't imagine the insurance coverage you would need for it. But that just showcases, I guess, to me. I mean, what I saw in you early on. You were an early adopter of software. You're innovative. You always created new things, and we're eager to do that. And I think that's a necessity for this job, for this career, because you want to be able to continually improve and learn new things and come up with innovative ways that don't always just require you to go buy a new thing, right? You can also find ways to fix existing things. And I think that that's definitely something I've seen from you, and it's quite admirable. And
another thing too, if I could mention this too, a key point, and I think every maintenance worker, starting off, junior, whatever, and all that, I have a saying that I tell everybody: have the right tool to do the job, right? If you don't have the right tool, don't do the job, right? And I think, a maintenance person, whatever, you are in a position to request to make sure that you do have the right tool for many reasons. Safety, number one, right? We want that. And not only that, if you have the right tool, you're not going to get as frustrated, and you're actually going to do a much, much better job. So very difficult sometimes for managers or anybody holding a budget. So that's why, if you're part of doing a budget, put some money in there for some tools, right? And make sure that you stay on top of it. Some of the tools that are coming out now, then, right? It's just phenomenal. I buy every one of them, right? So, and you know who invents these? It's your plumbers that are inventing these smart tools. It's your electricians, right? It's your HVAC guys and everything. So that work the field and find better ways and smarter ways to get the job done. So right tool for the job.
that is great advice. I know I've experienced that at my own house. If I'm trying to drill through something or saw something, just something as simple as that, and you don't have the right bit or the right saw blade, whatever it is, it'll be a hack job. It'll take you twice as long, whatever it is. Whereas once you get the right one, you're like, oh, this is how they do it. It's like they have the right tool. And it's funny you say that, because we actually have a new show coming out on our Maintenance Care channel that will be for tool reviews. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that later in the future, because I'd love to hear your expertise on some of these tools, because that's what we're trying to do, is share information with other maintenance people about what they can use to do a better job at their day-to-day.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, thank you very much for doing this. It was great catching up and talking again. And I look forward to seeing what new things you come up with. And you're always giving us advice on the software, and we try to improve it. We got a big update coming up next year. You'll see all these new changes. So I think that we look forward to continue working together, and it's been great.
So one thing I want to comment too, because I deal with a lot of different vendors, technology and a whole bit. We have a Power of IT. I think Maintenance Care has one of the best support teams I've ever encountered, right? Yeah, you guys are like, first of all, you're in real time. That's great, because when you're struggling with something, you really want that answer. And yeah, you have a great team. We live in a fast-paced world, unfortunately, right? So getting that response and getting things back up and running is crucial. Maintenance guys, they're not fanatics of sitting there and doing data entry and all that, right? It becomes part of their daily routine. When they run into a snag, 9 times out of 10, they don't quite have the patience needed, right? But when I tell them, listen, get a hold of, maintenance care, IT, and Hobit, and they can resolve that within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it's a game changer on how they view things, right? So when they encounter a problem, they don't walk away. Their first instinct is, let's just get a hold of the support team at Maintenance Care. So good on you guys. Keep that going.
That's a great testimonial. I appreciate that. And it's good that they can rely on our team. We try to do that, and we work real hard to make sure everybody has the same philosophy at our company, which is that our customers are number one, and that's what we've always tried to do. And it's glad to see that that's going to the end user. So I appreciate that. Well, again, thanks for talking to me. It's been great, and we'll stay in touch. Okay.
Yes, we will. Take care of that.